Hi, this is Charles, and this is another Bible study in the Journey Through God's Word series. So go ahead and grab your favorite version of the Bible, a notebook, and a pen or pencil to take some notes. This particular study is on the second day of creation as described in Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 through 8. So if you enjoy this study, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you're notified whenever I post additional Bible study videos. Today's lesson focuses on how God created a firmament to divide the waters on the earth from the waters in the heavens. The focus of the lesson will be on the fact that it was God who created everything, that God's creation contains all that we need to live and prosper, and that God placed in us the power to be creative as he was. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Genesis 1, 6 through 8 from the King James Version. As stated earlier in Genesis 1 and 1 through 2, when God created the heaven and the earth, he also created waters over which his spirit hovered. These three verses, Genesis 1 and 6 through 8, suggest that the waters were not confined to the surface of the earth, but were present throughout the infant universe. So God created a firmament to divide the waters, leaving some waters above this firmament and some waters below. In the King James Version of the Bible, God called the firmament itself heaven with a capital H. This usually means the third heaven, which is the place where God has his throne. And we see that in 2 Corinthians 12 and 2, as opposed to what are sometimes called the first heaven, which is the skies and the atmosphere of the earth and outer space in the place of planets, the sun, moon, and stars in the distant galaxy, and the second heaven, which is the spiritual realm inhabited by angels and demons. However, despite the capitalization of the English word, the original Hebrew term is Shemayim, which is translated as the sky and the physical space above it. Therefore, this refers to the first heaven, the skies, the universe outside of the atmosphere of the earth. It's the physical place, not a spiritual second heaven or third heaven. It's common knowledge that there's water on the earth, in the oceans, the seas, the lakes, the rivers, and in the skies above the earth. The waters in the skies are what form the clouds and fall to the ground as rain, hail, sleet, and snow. But science has determined that there also is water in space. It can be found in the comets and the asteroids, surfaces of other planets and their moons, and what is called the Oort clouds surrounding the solar system, gigantic molecular clouds scattered throughout the galaxy, and even on alien planets outside the solar system. But is there any evidence elsewhere in Scripture to verify that there is water in or above the firmament, i.e., in heaven? In fact, there is. Revelation 22 and 1 says, "And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb." The question that one might ask is why water was one of the first things mentioned in the story of creation. Why was water the focus on day 2 while man was not created until day 6? The answer is that everything that would be created on the earth from day 3 onward would be dependent on there being water on the planet. Without water, there could be no plants. Without plants, there could be no animals and no people. So the following is some of the information about the importance of water in creation. Purposes of water on the earth. Water provides a habitat for fishes and other aquatic and semi-aquatic creatures. There are literally millions of species of animals that call the saltwater oceans and seas and the freshwater rivers, lakes, and ponds of the earth home. This includes creatures such as the fishes, crustaceans, cephalopods, cetaceans, aquatic mammals, and various invertebrates. Some of them live in the water for their entire life cycle, while others spend only portions of their lives in the water and the rest on dry land. For example, the class of animals known as amphibians spawn and lay their eggs in water, and their hatchlings spend the early part of their lives swimming in the waters in which they hatched before climbing out of the water and living the rest of their lives mostly on land. Many insect species, such as mosquitoes, also lay their eggs in water and live part of their lives there before emerging into the air or onto land as adults. So here are some well-known aquatic creatures. First are the fishes, which includes both bony fish like tuna and cartilaginous fish like sharks and rays. There are also sea turtles. There are crustaceans like crabs, lobsters, crayfish, prawns, langoustine, shrimp, and other similar creatures. There are mollusks like mussels, clams, oysters, scallops, etc. Then there are the cetaceans, which are sea-based mammals such as whales, dolphins, and porpoises. The group called pinnipeds includes seals, sea lions, and walruses. Cephalopods include the squids, octopuses, cuttlefish, and nautiluses. There are many different species of jellyfish, many of them being very poisonous. There are the sea snails, some of which have shells and some don't. The ones that do have shells, those shells come in various shapes, sizes, and colors. Then there are the starfish, the sea urchins. Manatees, also called sea cows, may have been mistaken for mermaids by ancient mariners. Beavers are large aquatic rodents that were once prized for their fur. Otters are another class of semi-aquatic mammals. One of the main roles of the world's oceans is to regulate global weather and climate. This is the result of a handful of oceanic effects. The oceans influence global weather and climate by storing solar radiation, absorbing carbon dioxide, distributing heat and moisture around the globe, and driving weather systems. Since about 2/3 of the Earth's surface is covered in water, the majority of sunlight that strikes the surface of the Earth falls onto the oceans. This solar heat energy is absorbed by the water instead of heating up the dry land. And when the sun goes down, much of this absorbed heat is radiated back into the atmosphere and out into space. This helps to keep the temperature of the planet within a comfortable range for living things. Absorption of carbon dioxide. CO2 is a powerful greenhouse gas that can trap solar heat in a planet's atmosphere and prevent it from radiating back out into space. When too much CO2 is in a planet's atmosphere, over time the heat will build up in a process called a runaway greenhouse effect that will render the planet's surface too hot for life. This is what happened on the planet Venus, where the surface temperature is approximately 900 degrees Fahrenheit. On the Earth, however, the oceans help to prevent the greenhouse effect by absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere and locking it away in the carbon-rich shells of marine life like mollusks and zooplankton. Distributing heat and moisture around the globe. Water in the world's oceans is constantly in motion. Because cold water is heavier than warm water, the cold water near the planet's poles sinks to the bottom of the ocean, and warmer water from near the equator flows in to replace it. This results in circular currents being set up between the equator and each of the poles, bringing heat from the equatorial regions to the northern and southern latitudes, and bringing cooler temperature water and air from the high latitudes to the equator. This helps to balance global temperatures and mitigates any temperature extremes. The oceanic currents also drive global weather, including the prevailing winds that blow over the continents, monsoons in the tropical regions, and cyclonic storms such as hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons that form over the oceans and travel toward the continental coastlines. Ocean temperatures also drive seasonal, annual, or long-range weather patterns along the continental coastlines, such as El Nino and La Nina on the California coast. Water also maintains the Earth's vegetation. The Earth's hydrologic or water cycle, which is driven by water evaporating from oceans, seas, lakes, and rivers, produces rain and other precipitation that waters vegetation all over the globe. In those areas where there is insufficient natural precipitation to maintain vegetation, humans have to resort to irrigation or man-made rain to sustain agriculture. Water provides hydration for animal life. Water is essential to life on Earth. Though there are some life forms on the planet that can live without oxygen or even without light, there are none that can live without water. The bodies of most animals, including humans, are approximately 2/3 water, which is about the same proportion as the Earth itself. But what about mankind's uses for water? Man uses water for drinking. This is the most basic of all uses of water by mankind. The human body is approximately 2/3 water, and maintaining the right level of water in the body is essential to maintaining life. Therefore, the body has a mechanism to warn you when your water level is getting too low. It's called thirst. A person who doesn't respond to their thirst and drink enough water can suffer from dehydration, which can present as a series of increasingly deleterious symptoms, starting with overheating, followed by heat exhaustion, then heat stroke, potentially resulting in death. But what does water do in the body that's so critical to life? Water is a principal component of blood plasma, the liquid part of the blood in which the red and white blood cells and the clot-producing platelets are suspended. Without water, the blood would be a rust-colored pile of dust. Water participates in many chemical reactions within the body. Many, if not all, of the body's metallic chemical reactions must take place in a liquid environment. As a powerful solvent, water provides an ideal medium for those chemical processes to take place. Water cools the body through the evaporation of sweat and prevents overheating, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke or death. Water aids in the digestion of food. This begins in the mouth with the saliva, which is 99% water and 1% protein and salts. And it continues in the stomach, where the gastric juices are also 99% water and 1% acids like hydrochloric acid. Water helps to flush toxins and waste from the body through urination. Approximately 91 to 96% of urine consists of water. Man uses water for cooking. Water is a main component of a number of popular cooking methods, some of which are likely quite ancient and can be traced back to when humans first began to cook the foods that they ate. These include boiling, braising, steaming, sous vide, poaching, scalding, double boiling, stewing, and making soups. Man uses water for washing and bathing. Though daily baths and showers are a relatively modern practice, humans have been washing themselves in water for millennia, whether their whole bodies or only parts like hands or feet. Bathing and showering traditionally has been practiced for three primary reasons. First is cleanliness. This has been much less important in the past than it is today. Second is ceremonial purification. This was more common and widespread in the past. And third, for pleasure. This is a decidedly modern practice. Some people make a long soak in a hot tub filled with scented oils and bubbles into an event. They might even light scented candles, listen to relaxing music, and enjoy their favorite beverage while they soak. Men use water for cleaning. Another of the most common uses of water is to wash and clean various objects. Some of the most common examples of this in the modern world and the devices or services that men have created to accomplish them are washing clothes in a washing machine, washing dishes in an automatic dishwasher, washing cars in an automatic car wash, bathing pets at pet salons, mopping floors using power mops, and cleaning bathrooms with bowl brushes and scrubbing bubbles. Men use water for disinfecting. This is similar to the previously mentioned cleaning item, but the purpose is different. Instead of simply cleaning something, the purpose of disinfecting is to remove any toxic or disease-causing agents. Men use water for cooling. Some of the ways that water is used to cool objects and areas. First, evaporative coolers are used to cool houses and buildings in some locations instead of using refrigerated air conditioners. Second, radiators filled with a mixture of coolant, chemicals, and water are used in some internal combustion engines in vehicles like cars, trucks, and buses. And third, the atomic piles of many nuclear power plants are water cooled. Man uses water for recreation. Over the millennia, humans have developed many recreational activities focused around water, snow, or ice. These include swimming, diving, water skiing, snow skiing, ice skating, surfing, snowboarding, waterboarding, ice hockey, water polo, sport fishing, and boating, sailing, yachting, or speedboat racing. Man uses water to irrigate plants. Irrigation is the process of bringing water from its source to an arid region to support agriculture. The source of the water may be a river, lake, or an underground aquifer, and the transmission method may be pumps, pipes, canals, or aqueducts. Man uses water for transportation. Man has used navigable waterways, seas, lakes, and oceans as a means to travel between regions that were difficult to travel between by any other means. Man uses water for power generation. Historically, men have taken advantage of the power of flowing water by building water-driven sawmills and grist mills on fast-flowing rivers and streams. More recently, many dams have incorporated giant hydroelectric turbines to generate electricity. Atomic power plants use the heat from their reactors to boil large quantities of water and use the steam to drive turbines that also generate electricity. So why did God create the firmament to divide the waters above from the waters below on day 2? He couldn't have created it before day 2 because there was nothing to divide yet. And he couldn't have waited to create it on day 3 because that was the day that he created the plants. And with the waters and the skies mixed together, there would have been no dry land on which the plants could grow. What, if any, spiritual significance is there in the firmament separating the waters above from the waters below on day 2? The significance is in the separation. The Greek word ekklesia, from which we get the English word church, means to be called out and separate. God calls us out of the world and sanctifies us for his own good use. He commands us to, quote, come out from among the world and be separate. We are to be in the world, but not of it. Our focus is to be on things above and not on things below. What lessons can be learned from this lesson? First lesson, creation was not an accident. It was purposeful and progressive. There was a design and a plan. To be purposeful means to have a reason for doing the things that you do. It is the opposite of doing things inadvertently or accidentally. God is a purposeful God. Everything that he does is for a reason. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon tells us that, quote, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. It is God who established the time and the season for everything, beginning at the very second of creation. In fact, we can actually see God's assigned purpose for many of the things that he created in the Genesis narrative. The purpose of the firmament created on day 2 was to divide the waters from the waters, Genesis 1:6. The purpose of gathering the waters under the heavens together on day 3 was to let the dry land appear, Genesis 1:9. The lights were created in the firmament on day 4 to divide the day from the night and to be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, Genesis 1:14. The purpose of the greater light was to rule the day, and the lesser light's purpose was to rule the night, Genesis 1:16. The purposes of the living creatures created in the seas, in the air, and on the land on days 5 and 6 were to, quote, be fruitful and multiply, to fill the seas, and to multiply in the earth, Genesis 1:22. Second lesson. God created everything according to a plan and in a predefined order. He did not create anything until he had already created everything that the newly created thing would need to exist and to be sustained. Before he created the sea creatures and birds on day 5, he created the oceans on day 2 and the trees and plants on day 3, in which they would live and find the food that they needed to survive. Before he created the plants and trees on day 3, he created the dry ground on day 2, in which they would grow, and the water on day 2, and the light on day 1 that will sustain them and allow them to grow. Lesson 3. Water was one of the first things created. It was created on day 1. But on day 2, God created a firmament to divide the waters on the earth from the waters above the earth. Lesson 4. Water is critical for life. Though there are life forms on the earth that can live without oxygen or even without light, there are none that can live without water. The bodies of most animals, including humans, are approximately 2/3 water, which is about the same as the earth itself. Thanks for watching. Come back next time for Creation Day 3.